Hello, and welcome to the Spring 17 Developer Preview Live on Salesforce Live. I'm Dave Carroll, and I want to thank you for joining us as we near the Spring 17 release of Salesforce. There's a few things that we want to accomplish today with this program. First of all, we want to take the time to really explain and educate you on some of the best and brightest new features in the release. But we want to provide more information than you can get just by reading the release notes. And we really want to bring those release notes to life. And we're going to do that through a combination of some presentations and some demos. The other thing that we want to do is really connect you, our customers, with the people that are building our features and products on Salesforce. And there's two ways that we're going to do that. One, we have a panel of project managers and experts who are building the product that we'll introduce in a few minutes that will be doing the demos and the presentations. Also, we want to provide you with a method to communicate with us. So we're going to ask you to do some Q&A. If you have questions, please post them to Twitter and use the Salesforce Live hashtag. There's another method that you can use if you're on the Salesforce community. Go to the Release Readiness group and post your questions there. Now, we're going to be recording this program so that if, in the event that you're unable to stay for the entire program, or maybe you want to come back and revisit, review the program, we've got you covered in that way. So also, some of the features that we're going to be talking about are not GA. We're going to be talking about features that are in the release that might be pilot, might be beta also. And so to that end, I'd like to present you with our forward-looking statement. Basically, this says to make all of your buying decisions on currently available product, not on anything that might be promised in the future. So with that, let's go ahead and meet our experts.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Farhan Tahir. I'm a product manager on the Lightning platform. I am responsible for our customer-facing UI technologies, namely Lightning Components, Visualforce, and Canvas. I'm also responsible for the security layer on the Lightning platform, Locker Service.
Hi, my name is Leanne Templeman. I'm a senior evangelist here at Salesforce, which means I get to work with our product managers across the product for both declarative and programmatic features, and also with our community of admins and developers to help teach and build on the platform.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Greg Wester. I'm a product manager on our platform, and I focus solely on our developer experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Kanan Garg. I'm a product manager for Web Snap-ins and Service Cloud. I'm also responsible for service templates and anything customer experience facing.
Fantastic. So there's a lot of features in the release. We're going to highlight a few of them, and we'll start off with Farhan.
Thank you, Dave. As you said, we've done a lot of work in the Spring 17 release, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of my favorite features. I'm going to start off with Visualforce today. Visualforce has been the UI platform of choice for the past decade. With that said, we introduced Lightning Experience and we GA'd Visualforce usage in Lightning Experience with the summer release last year. And since then, we have been making features and products to make it easier for our developers to transition their Visualforce pages into Lightning Experience. So with the Spring 17 release, developers can now access Lightning design system without having to use static resources, just natively in their Visualforce pages. Let me just quickly show you that via demo. As you can see, this is my Visualforce page. Really simple Visualforce page, and it is designed using SLDS. So let's go to the page markup. I'm going to hit edit here. So as you can see here, this page on line 9, you can see this page is using SLDS from a static resource. This is how you add SLDS to your Visualforce pages today.
And this is what we've been doing with adding SLDS to Visualforce since SLDS came out.
Exactly. So SLDS is natively available in Lightning Experience, in Lightning Out, in communities. Visualforce was the last place it wasn't available natively. So now I can easily, with Spring 17, I can easily comment this line out for the static resource and uncomment the brand new Visualforce component called Apex SLDS. I'm going to hit quick save here and watch. When I refresh this page, the styling will still be SLDS, although I do not have any static resources on my page.
That's great. And one of the things that I like about this is that you no longer have to worry about when we change SLDS, right? Because if we're delivering it in this component, we're delivering you the latest version.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. Next, I would like to talk about Lightning Container Component. This is a brand new feature in Spring 17. It's developer preview in Spring 17, and then we'll go GA at a later release. When we introduced Lightning, our JavaScript client-side framework, there was a lot of ask for a technology or tool where customers can use their either existing or net new applications built on Angular or React or any other third-party JavaScript to be hosted inside of Lightning. So our answer is Lightning Container Components. This will allow you to host your existing or new Angular, React, or any third-party application, JavaScript application within Lightning in a first-class citizen way where your end users won't be able to tell if this particular component is built using Aura or is it built using Angular. This solution will be iframed when it's your Angular application will be iframed when in Lightning Experience, so that Aura.js does not collide with your custom JS. And number two, when you're debugging, because of the iframe isolation, it makes debugging a lot easier. I also have a demo for this particular piece. Let me quickly show you. I built a React application using Visual Studio Code, which is provided by Microsoft. And as you can see in this particular application, this is a React application. You can see from the React tags, React.create element. After I was done creating this application, what I did is I zipped it up as a static resource into Salesforce. So you can see this is the only static resource in my organization. This is my React app zipped into a static resource. Now I'm going to go take you to Developer Console. In this Developer Console, as you can see, this is an Aura component just like any other component that you build, custom component that you build. But the magic is happening on line 21. This is the new Lightning Container standard component that we released with Spring 17 release. You're giving it an ID, and you're also giving it the static resource where it's pulling in the application. Now I'm going to take you to the Lightning App Builder page where I'll show you how to actually use this.
So going back to the way that you configured that component, I think what's interesting to point out is that although it's a full React app inside of that, that simple container component, it also has all the other things that you would see in a Lightning component, like attributes,
Exactly.
participate in events, and so on.
Exactly. So as you can see in this component, I have my custom icon right here. I also have my settings from the static resource, which I can edit. So this is a first-class citizen on the Lightning Experience platform, although this is written on Angular application. And as you can see, I have put the Angular app on the page using Lightning App Builder. I also have some other components on the same page. So I'm going to hit save here, go back. And on this page, you can see my application in action. Dave, two things I want to highlight here. Number one, this is actually live data. So when I'm running the application, this is pulling live data from Salesforce, which means we have provided the ability to call API from within the Angular application. Your session is API enabled, so you can pull data as is. Number two is, we have also provided you with a messaging service. So if I give you a new property, which is basically an opportunity, and I'm going to give it my home state address. Okay, so now using our messaging service, it's going to post a message outside of the iframe to the parent container. As you can see, it just did that right here. It is using a Lightning text area to populate some information based on the action that I took.
So I think that's a really key element of this component, is the ability for the React, the Angular application, to be able to pass that barrier of the iframe, at which point the component the actual Lightning component that's hosted in has the full power, the full capabilities, everything, all the messaging, eventing that the platform provides, and it just proxies it back and forth to the React app, for instance.
Absolutely.
Which is really cool, I think,
Yes.
and going to be very useful.
Thank you. Moving on from container components.
Are we presenting here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
In the Winter 17 release, as you know, the Lightning platform released about 23 standard Lightning components. These are the base Lightning components that a developer can use to build experience components or experience applications for the Lightning experience and the S1 mobile. With Spring 17, we are going to continue the rolling thunder of momentum, providing more and more base components. In the Spring 17 release, I have the 3 examples on my slide, and we're going to continue this momentum in the Summer 17 release as well. Our goal is to achieve, number one, achieve parity with Visualforce components, standard components, and then go beyond that. So as a system admin or as a developer, you have a full suite of base components that you can use in your Lightning applications.
I'm excited about the progress in the base components, because these are one of the biggest technologies that help accelerate the development of Lightning components over and above what you can do custom, right? Because now you're inheriting behaviors that the rest of the Lightning experience uses, and thereby keeping your users in a consistent interface and experience as well.
Absolutely. So let me quickly show you a couple of examples of the ones that are coming out with Spring 17. The first one is Avatar. Basically, you show the image of a user within your application. It comes in 3 different flavors: regular, large, and also the circular one. The 2 others that are my favorite in this particular release are the input ones. So we did input search. This is a component you can use to either deliver standard search functionality using Saucel, or even custom search functionality using Apex. The second one is the file input, which is lower on my page right here. Not only does it give you a button to upload files, you can drag and drop files using this component as well.
Well, I know that was one of the components that I noticed in some of our Stack Exchange and other channels that people were really kind of struggling with, is how do I upload files using Lightning? So that's going to be a huge help.
Yes. And as I said, we're going to continue this momentum into spring and beyond with more and more standard Lightning components. Dave, you have been developing on the platform for years now, and on the Lightning platform for a couple of years now. You have firsthand noticed the challenges in terms of debugging. So on Chatter, on Stack Exchange, a lot of our developer feedback is we need to make exception handling better. So with the Spring 17 release, I'm really happy to say that the Lightning component team put in a lot of work to handle server-side exceptions in a human-friendly manner. So let me quickly show you what I mean by that. Before the Spring 17 release, you would see if there was a particular error and you didn't catch it and you hit save, and on runtime, you will see the error on the right. So as you can see, it gives you a bunch of internal IDs, which for an internal developer are great.
Fantastic.
But if you're an external or a platform developer, not so good. So we will be replacing this for server-side exceptions with the new one on the left side in red. It will give you the exact error, it will give you where the error is coming from, and also it will give you the line numbers. Not our Aura component line numbers, your custom component line numbers, so you can target where the error
Now
is.
that's really key, because if you understand anything about the internals or the package that's delivered when you run Lightning, it's one big JavaScript file, right?
Yes.
And knowing the line number in there is not super useful. Actually, knowing the line number in the source code that's having the problem, now that's very useful.
Yes, yes. So let me
Finally.
Let me give you a quick example. So in this example, I have a component called missing attribute. Because it implements force app hostable, I can put it behind a tab. So I opened my tab. It is really simple component which says showing my component. Now it also references a child component with attribute my string. I'm going to go to the child component and change my string here. I'm going to hit save. And watch what happens when I refresh this page. The new error message pop-up shows up telling you exactly what the issue is. My string is not found, where the issue is, including line numbers. And then for developers, they can also see the stack at the bottom. So I know it's in line number 3. I go back to developer console. I say, oh, line number 3 is calling my string. Go to my string. I see what the error is or the issue is. I hit save, come back to my component, hit refresh, and my app is running again.
That's really great, and it's, you know, everybody makes mistakes when you're developing applications, and being able to identify those and rectify those mistakes quickly is super important.
Absolutely. And as I said, we did server-side exception handling in the Spring 17 release. We will be doing client-side exception handling, which is the second part of the story, in the Summer 17 release. So lots
Fantastic.
in Spring, but lots more coming in summer as well.
Great, great. Can't wait to see that.
Dave, the last thing I want to touch base on is Lightning Locker service. Security and trust is our number one priority, not just for the Lightning platform, but for Salesforce as a whole. With the introduction of Lightning pages, which means you can have components from various sources on the same page, we wanted to ensure that the data rendered by each component is safe, regardless of how many components from different sources are on the page. So we introduced Lightning Locker service. It is available as a critical update in Spring 17 release and before, which means a system admin can turn it off and on as many times as he or she likes to test their components with Locker and without Locker. What's changing in Spring 17 is, although it is still a critical update, means you can turn it off and on as many times as you like, in only Sandbox and DE orgs, we have also added the CSP checks, which was the last part of Locker service. So in Spring 17, in Sandbox and DE orgs, you get DOM containment, you get restriction to public APIs, and you get CSP checks. This will allow our partners in DE orgs and our customers in Sandbox orgs to test Locker compliance end-to-end before we enforce it in Summer 17 release for all organizations. And that would be a huge milestone, because security will be part of the development process, because often it's considered as an afterthought.
Right, right. And trust being number one. I think a lot of people don't kind of understand some of the finer points of what's at risk in a common web page that might have JavaScript running in it. And the CFP, which is Content Security Policy, allows you to basically set different policies that are then enforced by the browser. And absolutely. I think that we go a step further with that, don't we, Greg, by requiring my domain? How does that work?
Yeah. So increasingly, your application is executing in the browser rather than on our services. And so with browsers, it's important to make sure that those live scripts only communicate back with your tenant organization. And so my domain is the first step in that. Absolutely. And then web standards have evolved quite a bit to allow very granular content security on different active sections of the page. And so it's really neat that we've implemented this so soon.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, so that's a bunch of great updates. Really looking forward to progress continuing to move forward. I think Trailhead DX will have a lot more to say about Lightning components, base components, getting some of these things that are currently in pilot and GA. So
Absolutely.
it's fantastic. I'd like to take a second now and see answer a few questions that we've received on Twitter. I've got a question from Mark Williamson. He's asking, is the Lightning container component similar to the S-Force, or the Force Canvas? Is it similar to our Canvas technology?
So Canvas, your solution is hosted off-platform. So the solution is not, your application is not sitting on Salesforce. It's sitting on your, external CDN. With Lightning Container Components, your application is actually sitting on Salesforce in a static resource. So that will be the main difference.
Yeah, the similarity really kind of ends at the fact that there's an iframe involved.
Yes.
Really. Let's see. I've got another question here. This is from CHSZNAP. I'm not sure if that is meant to be phonetically mentioned, but can the React app within the Lightning container component communicate/send events to other components?
Other custom components, yes. So let's say just like I sent a message to display the message that a new opportunity was created, you can send a similar message to a custom component on the same page to update a list as the new opportunity is created or to take some other action. But yes.
Really the containing component, the component that contains that container component can do whatever any other Lightning component can do.
Exactly.
And so it really stands as a proxy between the React app and the rest of the Lightning experience, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, let's move on to a little bit different topic. What I'd like to do is have Leanne talk about some of the features in the spring release that are declarative that are very useful for developers to understand.
Great, thanks, Dave. So as Dave mentioned, I want to talk about how we can customize in Lightning. And the reason this is relevant to everybody, admins and developers alike, is we heard about the great changes coming to components and the increased tools developers will have to build components. And what we see in spring and with every release in Lightning is increased ways for developers and admins to surface those components to their end users. So as you're building new and different types of components, it's good to know where you can put those components, what type of end use cases you have available to you for surfacing them in your apps. So the first Spring 17 feature I'd like to talk about, I'm very excited about Lightning Console apps. Lightning Console apps, if you're familiar with Salesforce consoles in the past, maybe in Aloha, they give your users a way to be really productive, have multiple tabs open that have contextual subtabs, and not lose track of those as they're working on different projects. So often, historically, the use case was maybe people working in a call center, maybe inside sales, people who might be working on a lot of different things at once. And this would allow them to have many different records open, look at different pages, all within their Salesforce app without having, say, multiple windows open or multiple browsers or tabs open. What's cool about Lightning Console apps is you're not limited to sales or service use cases, and you have a lot of the benefits of components and building and customizing those apps with components. So I did mention sales and service, but you can create a Lightning Console app for any use case, really. A lot of us have end users that have changing and shifting job roles. They might do a lot of different things in their job, and so you can create a custom project management console, for example, or project management app.
So really a console is just another option that we're now making available for you as far as navigation. It's actually kind of conceptually easier to think about a console as a self-contained single-page app.
Right, yeah, it's different navigation options to view and work with your existing objects and pages that you have in your Salesforce. But where components come in, there's a few ways that components come in to console apps. One is the utility bar. So with the utility bar, you have the option to create and customize these available components at the bottom of your app page that show up as docked components. And so if you think about maybe actions in the past or things that your users do most often in their Salesforce apps, you can create components to, say, meet the needs of your project managers. And utility bars are, if you think about the components that are best served for a utility bar, things that they'd want to do that maybe are not record specific. So maybe a chatter post, or look at their notes, or if you're creating, say, a custom project management component that really isn't unique to one object, but it's unique to that side of the business and that app.
It's kind of similar to our concept of actions, where we have global actions and then we have like record type actions, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. So when we used to build actions, right, you had to think about, okay, is this going to be for a record specifically, or is it something we want our users to access everywhere? But what's cool about using components in the utility bar is you can take it, there's a middle ground there between everyone's going to use it all the time and you're only going to use it when you're looking at this type of object, because you can say, I think my users would use this component, but maybe just my project managers need this component. So maybe I'm just going to put it in the project management app. So it's one step more granular than a global action or being made globally available, but it's not as granular as, say, putting it on a record page. And you'll be able to create these utility bars for your apps, all of your Lightning apps. You can edit also your, maybe sales app, things like that. So it's not limited to, custom Lightning apps that you're creating or custom console apps you're creating. You can start to customize the experience for your users everywhere they are in your Salesforce apps. And a little bit more on kind of that console idea. Dave mentioned that it's focused on navigation, and so it is a really friendly navigation experience for your users. So it keeps them in one place kind of with this app, so they don't have to open up other tabs and have Salesforce running in like 5 different Chrome tabs. And then admins and developers can really customize that branding experience. And as I mentioned, customize the utility bar, but they can also customize the record pages and how they're presented. So this relates to component development again, when we look at components that you might be building that are record specific. So we're just talking about components that were maybe business specific, like project management specific, but maybe you're creating components that are really great for project managers to use that should live on an account page, right? You might be making components and thinking about developing components that are specific to a record experience. And so now you can edit those record pages, and then you can assign them to a specific app. So I can have an experience on my account page, for example, that is entirely customized with custom and standard components that are specific for sales, and that would be what the account page looks like on the sales app. But I can also build components and use standard components to customize a page for how our project managers view accounts. So there's a lot of ways in Spring 17 and in Lightning to really define who sees components and when they see them, maybe in their job duties, and how they're surfaced for those users.
Yeah, what is the key takeaway for me around this particular topic is that we're increasing the number of places where, as a Lightning component developer, you can bring those components and get them into the application. So
exactly.
It's not just a tab, it's not just a record home, but also in the utility bar now as well. We've had the utility bar, but now the utility bar in the console, which is very cool.
Yeah, it's in. So it's a really cool, and I'm glad you said that, Dave. It's something that maybe often for developers out there, it's your admins that are working more in the declarative customization and setup and building pages. But I think it's really important to think about and be aware of kind of all the different ways your end users can be engaging with these components. Because as you said, it's no longer just a page or a tab.
As a developer, you need to understand where these components. You create a component, now you've got a custom component in the list in the app builder, and it starts showing up in places that you didn't expect. Well, you need to be aware of the places that it can show up, so that you can better create those components to work well.
Exactly. So enough slides about these cool features. Let's go ahead and do a demo, and I'll show you some of the things you can do with consoles. So I'm in my Salesforce environment, and just a quick kind of lay of the land for foundation. When we talk about Lightning apps, we're talking about those apps that your users would be getting to from this Lightning app launcher. So this is where all of those console apps and Lightning apps, or Lightning console apps and Lightning apps that you're creating, as well as standard, would be navigated to. So we're in Sales Lightning, but I'd like to create a new console app. So I'm going to go to Setup, and I am going to go to App Manager and create a new Lightning app. We'll call this Project Management. And you can pick a color that works for you so that your users can get to it. You can also add a logo and all of that. We won't do that right now. Now this is where we create that console app. So we're creating all of our Lightning apps and our Lightning console apps from this app manager area in setup, but this is where we define what that navigation experience is like. And that console button here is what gives us access to those subtabs. And
before we get too far down this path, there's one thing that I want to make sure that everybody who's watching understands, and that is what we mean when we say a feature is going to be beta. Mm-hmm. So can you explain that for us?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So Lightning App Builder or Lightning console apps are in beta in Spring 17, which means that you have access to them in your Spring 17 org. So that's where it's different than a pilot, for example. You don't have to request access if you have a pre-release org or if you have your sandboxes that are on Spring 17. But it does mean that it's a feature that is continuing to maybe be customized further, or there might be changes that are coming to it. The look and feel might change. Because it is something that's not quite GA yet. So it's on the path to becoming GA, and you don't have to request access to it, but it is not GA yet.
So knowing that it's beta, go ahead and use it, but understand that things may change between now and the time that it gets to GA.
Exactly. So now I'm in Utility Bar, so I'm going to add my Utility Bar items. And you could create an app with no Utility Bar if you wanted, and you can add one or two. You have a lot of options kind of available to you. There's a few standard, so I have all my components here that are available in the utility bar. And there's a few standard components that I think will be useful for my project managers. Chatter Publisher, of course. Chatter is very important for all my users. And when I select that, just to give you an idea for those developers that are now excited about building components for utility bars, you define the label, you can define the icon, as well as the width and height. So you have control here as you build your component to then define how it's presented to your end users and what it looks like when they click on that doc item. We can add a couple of more. Let's add notes. So these are examples of the types of components, both standard and maybe custom components that you might build, that I would probably add to all of my apps, right? Because everyone likes notes, everyone likes chatter. But then I'm going to add a component to the utility bar that is really specific to project managers. And that is going to be my project status report. So here I can, again, define the properties of that. And so I have a report chart that's already created called my project status view. And I can customize it further with maybe filters, things like that. We've added our report chart. We've added Chatter Publisher. And I'm also going to add another component that I think is really exciting that is in beta in Spring 17 for a flow. So if you are using Visual Workflow, you can now surface Visual Workflows as components. So we'll say project help here. And then here we just select the items that we want to be available here. So we're going to bring a couple over. And this is the tabs, tabs are Lightning pages that you've created and you want to be available. So we need projects, perfect. And so I mentioned when you build components, you can define kind of how they're going to be surfaced and where they're going to be surfaced. One of the ways when we talk about creating these custom apps and having utility bars is you can assign them by profile, right? So again, if you're creating components, you can say, who would they be most useful to and how should they be worked with in your app. So we've created our app and I can go ahead and go to my new project management app. And so in console, because it's a console app, we have all of our different pages here, or options here. And if I open one up, I can see I just open a different tab. And I didn't lose access to that list view. I can still go back if I want to change what that list view looks like, and open another tab for chatter. Now, just to highlight before we get into our pages, I have my utility bar items down here. So I have my chatter publisher, and it shows by just popping up as a docked item there. I have maybe my report chart that I created that I can see.
It's very cool. And so you could have your custom components down there as well.
Exactly. So this is where you could be adding custom components and making them, again, available wherever your users are in an app. So one last thing, I'm just going to edit this page. So I'm in an account page right now, but I want to make a couple changes using App Builder to this page and using components. And so I'm going to add a related list. In our pages, we have our related list already here, but it has a lot of items because there's a lot of account items or account related items. I'm actually going to remove that for right now, and I'm going to add this custom new related list that will show me projects, because I'm making account page experience that's really specific to project managers. So I can add some project specific items. I can also make, maybe my tabs, edit my default tabs. Another cool place to put components is in tabs, and to have a custom tab for that. So we can say projects insights, and I can add let's add a report chart here. And I have a report by account project status, and I can maybe filter down by account ID if I want.
So I assume that everywhere that you're dropping standard components, you can drop custom components.
Exactly. So you can add components throughout the page. You can, with App Builder and with using tabs and kind of changing the look and feel of components, edit your page. But what's really cool, especially for, again, developers that are building really specific components that for users and for business cases, I can assign this page as an app default. So I can assign it to my project management app as the page, which means that when I go back to my project management app and I view my account page, I've got my updated components here. Cool. I've got my insights tab here. I've changed the default tab, and again, this means that I can have this really custom page experience, but with components, standard or custom components, and really choose and customize how that's presented to my end users.
Wow, I've seen people sling code before, but I've never seen anybody sling clicks like that. That's pretty amazing. Great, so that's a fantastic feature, and thank you very much, Leanne. Again, it's very important for the developer to understand all the places that Lightning components can be applied. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about developer experience, near and dear to my heart. So Greg, what do we got coming out for spring?
Thanks, Dave. So we've been working for a long time on what we call Salesforce DX. These are tools and processes aimed at the professional developer, somebody who works on a team of developers, maybe teams of teams, and wants to work with Salesforce the way they work with other languages on their desktop. And so we've had about 80 engineers working, again, for over the last year, making a lot of changes to our platform, replatforming in some cases, and they're just starting to come above the surface in spring 17. So we have a few pieces that we want feedback on.
Yeah, we're really kind of have gone all the way back to the drawing board and started from scratch and thinking about what the developer experience should be, and then what we need to do to make that come to fruition, haven't we?
Precisely so. And so I guess the motivation here is we studied some of our most productive ISVs, independent software vendors on the platform, and we said, how are you doing it? And how can we codify this into Trailhead, into our tools, into our processes, and how can we bend Salesforce a little bit so that we can enable you to work the way that you want to work? And so we're going to continue this journey. This is just beginning. There'll be many more things in summer 17 and winter 18. but we want feedback on a few pieces that I'm going to talk about and show today. And when I say this journey continues, I mean we have large IT shops in mind, people who are using packaging and ways of splitting up their code just to organize their own teams and organize their own code. And then including everybody in this experience, accelerated admins, everyone else who wants to code should be able to and feel empowered to save these things in version control and to work.
Yeah, a lot of this is about making it easy to apply industry-defined best practices around development and delivery of software.
Correct. And it's about delivering them with quality too. And so one of the foundations of that is moving the source of truth from the sandbox into version control. And so this is a foundational piece of what we're doing with Salesforce DX. We also are creating new APIs to make it faster for you to push code. So we want the time to value to be very high. One of my goals is that anybody who was to join a Salesforce project, maybe a consultant starts at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, and by 9:10 they're productive with their own development environment and able to contribute code to that team, and that it's intuitive to them as a professional developer.
Yeah, it's kind of like the mountain that we climbed in reducing our window of maintenance for every release to about 5 minutes, and we want to make that. We want to get developers up to speed in less time than it takes us to push a new release to Salesforce.
Correct. So a big motivation is time to value, and then also scale. So every time we go to Dreamforce or a World Tour event, we see bigger and bigger visions of what people are doing on the platform. And whether you do those declaratively or with code, you end up with more metadata underneath that or underpinning that. And so all of these tools, all these efforts are to help people scale up development on the platform, realizing that almost everything is done as a team, that you can do very little as an individual.
Right.
So maybe we'll jump right into demonstration, and I'll show you what I mean by some of these tools and what I'm excited about. So I grew up with command line interfaces, and for developers who want to work that way, we want to make sure that they can. So we've created what we call a CLI command line interface platform, where we've included a series of commands that we think cover 80% use cases. When I say platform, I mean you can extend this. So if there are other things that you have in your build process or that you want to add to this, you can, as long as you can write Node.js code.
Which I think is really important. Salesforce has customization in its DNA, right? I mean, that's kind of what makes Salesforce, and I'm glad we didn't stop at the command line interface as well.
Yes, no, and I work with 25 companies who create application lifecycle management tools, developer tools for our platform, in addition to the first-party tools that we provide, and they've already started contributing to this, contributing things for Apex static analysis to help you figure out if you're going to have a security review problem right in the code before you ever submit it.
Oh, that's great.
So again, this is about time to value. So even though we provide the command line interface, we also want to elevate that into our regular developer tools. So what I have here is a new version of the Force.com IDE. And we've heard you. We've heard everything that you said about the slowness of this product and some frustration with it. And we'd like you to look at it again in Spring 17, to download it again and to try it. So what we start with is version control. So I'm not going to sync to Sandbox and pull the code out of that. I'm going to pull it out of a VCS. In this case, I've hosted it or mirrored it in both GitHub, of course, with two-factor authentication turned on so that my code is secure. And I've also mirrored it in bitbucket.org, a great product from Atlassian. We see our customers using a mix of both of these, in addition to a new entrant, GitLab, is also very, very good.
GitLab, right.
Yeah, very popular. And so what I'm going to do is, I've already synced this down, and I'm going to go ahead and import the project into the workspace here. And so one of the pieces of feedback that we got from our large ISVs is they said, well, we need lots of environments. And not just developer sandboxes, not just developer edition orgs. We need essentially the ability to provision as many developer workspaces as we have code branches. And so the powerful feature in Salesforce DX is the ability for you to provision as many Scratch environments, as many Scratch orgs as you'd like. And so those are not templated from the traditional developer edition org or traditional developer sandbox. These are declarative. You can specify exactly what edition of Salesforce you want, exactly what features you want enabled, even provision features that you'd have to.
That's what we kind of call org shape, right?
Yeah, org shape. And additionally, anything that you would set in org preferences, set in the setup menu, you can say ahead of time, I'd like it to be like this, so that you're developing against something that looks like what your production users will be using.
And it's a JSON file that can be stored in your source code control, so everybody is in sync.
Right, so that's one of the tenets of quality, is that you capture all your configuration and version control. And so built right into the new IDE is all of these command line tools, and they execute right down through the programmatic interface to CLI. So CLI is really three things. It's a human readable interface for provisioning Salesforce environments. It's a scriptable interface that you can write build scripts against this and say, I want you to spin up a Scratch org, push some code into it, and run the test for me and let me know how that went. And it's also a programmatic interface, meaning you can write programs against it like this IDE.
So it's kind of the engine behind the Force.com IDE. It's doing all the heavy lifting. In that capacity, it could be the engine behind other IDEs, Visual Studio Code, Sublime.
That's correct.
Just about anything else.
Yeah,
I like to call it the one-stop shop, the CLI.
Yes, and this is, no matter what tools you use, if you're using a text editor, Maven's Mate, Sublime, any of the other IDEs like the Welkin Suite for our Visual Studio users, or Illuminated Cloud for IntelliJ, they're going to be able to take advantage of all the functionality in Salesforce DX without doing 6 months of development work.
And also, because it's executing as like a process at the OS level, that makes it applicable for just about every one of the CI tools out there, one of the CI vendors like Jenkins or what's another one?
Circle CI, Travis CI.
Travis, right,
There's a lot of, we encourage you always to do public cloud first. So if you have invested in, a farm of machines at your company, you can certainly use those. And there'll be ways that we can distribute these to all those continuous integration vendors in an industry standard way.
Yep.
That a certain standard Salesforce container will execute any of your jobs as long as you sync the code into it. So from this, I can just click right here and say I want to invoke the Apex test to see if my application deployed properly. I can immediately apply a perm set. In this case, I have the Dreamhouse application, so I'll apply the Dreamhouse perm set to my user. And again, I've created this whole thing from scratch, and in a few minutes, it's going to be up, ready, and working the way I want. We even have the functionality to import a little bit of data. So for each custom object, we've just included about a dozen records, just so that the application comes to life and does something, so that in human time, you can kind of grok what it's doing. And so with the Scratch org, I actually don't know the login to it, and that's sort of a feature in some ways, that these are just ephemeral, provisionable environments. And so the way I get into it is by clicking right in the IDE here. And if you notice, we've created the custom My domain for you. So this says Force Agility 5461. So this is pre-wired and pre-set up for Lightning component development. And I can jump into the application and start using it and start understanding what it does.
So it looks exactly like Salesforce.com, but that is not an org in the way that we think about orgs. It's not a developer edition. It's not an enterprise edition. It's a Scratch org.
Yeah, and so what's great about this is if I make a mistake inside of it, or I don't like the way that it looks, or something strange, I can just start over, and in a few minutes I have an environment again.
That is definitely different thinking around developing on the platform.
Yeah. Of course, we have the Lightning component editor with the multi-tabs on the bottom. If I were to make a small change to one of these, like maybe I'm going to change a color or a background color, set it to blue. When I do a save, it's not going to slow me down from doing my work. And so since this is different processes, remember the old IDE would kind of hang and wouldn't let you do any work and it interrupts your thinking.
Yes.
This one, everything happens asynchronously. So again, in over our new APIs, in a few seconds, this is pushed in just the one file that I changed. And this is version control agnostic. So we would encourage you to use Git. We think it'll help you scale up. We've also built it right into the IDE to make it easier for you to commit your changes without having to know all the command line utilities. Again, you could just drag and drop this and say, I think this looks better in blue. And go ahead and commit it or commit and push it, which will kick off a continuous integration bit on the force.com pipelines. So we're excited about all of this. We think it's turnkey CI/CD, and we think it's going to make you more productive, make you able to do more work inside of a single year. Give it a try in Spring 17, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, both the IDE and the CLI are pilot in Spring 17. It's an open pilot, right? So
Yes.
that means we're looking for feedback.
It's a closed pilot. We will.
Oh, closed pilot.
Yeah. So the way that you find out about it is if you go on developer.salesforce.com, switch products, Salesforce DX. At the bottom, there's an interest list. And if you go ahead and click on that, it pops open a Pardot marketing landing page. Enter your information here and get an email next month in February about how to join the pilot and how to download these tools and start giving us feedback.
We're pretty much letting just about anyone join the pilot.
I think we'll be able to accommodate everybody. I have it on good authority.
Okay, that's great. And again, the purpose of this is really to listen and get the feedback and make sure that we are getting this right.
Yes, and before we touched on what's the difference between a beta and a pilot. Pilot just means that you need to accept a separate agreement that says, I understand that this software is likely going to change a lot and that it's still actively changing as you're using it.
Yep, fantastic. So is that it? That all we have for DX?
No, let's jump back to slides. So I should talk about which things are generally available in Spring 17. So again, these things are all aimed at scale and making you more able to execute your vision on the platform. Many Java and .NET developers have been used to, for many releases of those platforms, the ability to do mocking and stubbing. And so this is kind of geek speak for the ability to take your Apex unit test, which may more resemble a functional test, and really scope it down to just testing a single API, to testing the single public members of a specific class. And so a benefit of doing this would be that you may see a big speed improvement if you're not loading the entire application into the runtime. And so what you're able to do here is say, I want to test only my controller helper and nothing else in the application. Everything next to it, if there's a date helper, if there's some kind of external service, none of that is going to...
Without the stubbing and the mocking, any other functionality that I'm referencing from within that helper will also be tested, right? Which could spider its way deep into many classes and take a long time to run.
Yeah, so this is about creating some isolation and, again, allowing you to express tests the way that you would in any other language.
Right.
Also in Developer Console, we noticed some customers have thousands of classes inside of their organizations, and so we made enhancements to allow code coverage to run in those cases where that wasn't a use case that was designed from the start. Right. So again, this is all about helping you scale. Something else really interesting that we worked on, the Apex Debugger. Now this is the real-time debugging product, the one that allows you to freeze pieces of our data center, essentially hold resources for yourself so that you can debug in real time exactly what's happening in the sandbox environment. So we expanded this feature to allow our independent software vendors, people who publish packages on our platform and distribute them through our App Exchange. These folks have access to something called the license management application. It's their packaging org, another way of saying it. And so they can see who is subscribed to the package that they've published. And if a subscriber asks for help, they say, hey, I installed your application and I noticed that I can't create leads anymore. What's happening? Can you figure it out for me? This allows ISVs to self-support their customers. And so when a customer requests support and requests login access, through the license management application, you can log into their subscriber organization, and then for the first time ever, you'll be able to see the managed code because you're you, the developer. And so you'll be able to watch the handoff of code and the program execution back and forth between managed and unmanaged code. And in some cases, you're going to find shortcomings in your implementation. Maybe you weren't expecting there to be 100 million records in the account object. And so you need to change your algorithms to make sure that you don't have hit a limit or something like that. In other cases, you can educate the customer on how they can code a little more defensively. Maybe they weren't expecting your package to also have a trigger on lead.
Right. I think that it's easy to not really understand how much the differences are in the environments that your application might be running in as an ISV, right? We tend to work in our own org. We think, oh, that's our org. How hard could it be? But everybody has a different org with different functionality, different customizations in it. And then when that bug occurs, being able to actually see the interaction between the customer customizations and the package implementation, I don't know how else you would do it, right? That's going to be very useful.
Correct. So this is an open beta. If you log into a customer organization now, you will see the Apex debugger in the setup menu, and you'll have access to one session, one portable license as a courtesy to be able for you to solve that problem with your customer without going through Salesforce support. So we think this is important for revenue protection, important for customer success. If someone uninstalls your package, no one's successful.
And that's actually, in my opinion, a part of developer experience.
Yeah.
Being able to solve problems with what you've built.
Yeah. So we've heard all of your ideas. We have them all in a long roadmap, and we're just happy that we can get a few of them out per release.
Yeah. This is hopefully people can understand that the way we're rethinking about development on the platform means that it's a big job, and it's going to take us a while, but we're going to be incremental in providing functionality release by release.
Yes, and we can always innovate our way to providing better features to more people.
Yep. Should we take a look at some questions? There's a couple of questions
Sure.
on Twitter. I'm going to start with Dave Hahn. Thank you, Dave, for chiming in. The question is, are person accounts on the roadmap for Developer DX?
Sure. So I think there are certain metadata gaps that we're working very hard to close when someone says, I'd like to save everything in version control, but this particular thing won't save back. That's one of the gaps that we know how to close now. And so by the time you see Salesforce DX go GA, we'll have closed all those metadata gaps. And realize as we expand the metadata shape, the gaps also increase with it. But we're at 99-point-something% now, and we'll get to 100%.
There's another question here that I'll go ahead and answer. The question is DX paid or standard? And I think at this point, pricing has not been determined. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
But I'll add that we're always committed to providing a free tier of it, just as you can use Developer Edition now for free. This will always be possible.
Yeah, for developers, our philosophy has always been remove friction, remove barriers to getting started and to being successful as well. So we'll keep that in mind. Great. Thank you, Greg. What I want to do now is switch to Kanan, who's got some great information about actually a pretty new technology based on some existing technology for Service Cloud initially, but hopefully the vision you will see is beyond Service Cloud. So Kanan?
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for setting the stage for Snap-ins. I'm excited to be here. It's a new product, and I'd love to talk and walk you through the demo and what the product is right now in the next few minutes that we have. So what is Snap-ins, right? It's a whole new terminology. Snap-ins is really a embedded customer service right in the customer's domain. So it could be your web app or it could be your native app, so that you can provide support to your end customers right where they are. And for a web application, that means taking a piece of JavaScript and putting it in the customer's domain. But for a mobile Snap-in, that means creating a service SDK, that the customer's native app can build on top of.
And by customer's domain, what you're saying really is their website is not hosted on Salesforce.
Oh yeah, nothing. It's completely external. It's not like a Visualforce page. No authentication into Salesforce is required. Right. So it's an external web application. So that is really where the product is, and the offering is to authenticate with Salesforce externally. So when we were designing and exploring the product, these were the three pillars that are very central to our product. So the first one is support in any page. That's what I talked about. It's embedded support that you can snap in. Really, that's where the name comes from. You can snap in the support into any web page or any application. And then the second one is, and I think this is where the company is going right now, is easy declarative setup. We've seen this happen all across the company where we're simplifying our setup experience. And when we were thinking of our setup experience, we knew we wanted it to be very declarative for admins so that they can get up and running in a matter of hours instead of days. So, click not code setup. Mm-hmm. And the third one, contextual intelligence, that is a piece that I would like to explain further. So usually what happens in a customer service or customer support process is, the user's on the website, they're browsing, and then they get stuck. And they don't know what to do. Then they start looking for ways to contact support. And then when they finally reach contact support, the agent, on the other hand, doesn't know where in the experience, where the experience was broken. So we want to provide contextual intelligence to empower our agents. So implementers can actually pass in data behind the scenes so that when the chat request comes into an agent, he or she is aware of where the user was in the experience before.
So it's almost like, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but you call support.
Yeah.
And they're like, so what's your phone number? It's like, wait, you don't have that context already? I just called you.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't instill confidence in their ability to support you. So that's what this does.
In an e-commerce experience, it could be the value of the shopping cart or the product catalog or the URL they're on. So it varies with the use case, but we do want to empower our agents. And this is our architectural slide. So we sit right on top of core. We're using leveraging platform in every way possible when it comes to authentication, security, error handling, networking, which is really important for mobile snap-ins. So once you have the platform, then you have the declarative setup. And then the piece I'd like to point out is the branding UI. So because we're integrated with the customer's domain, it's important to be one with their experience and not look separate or, not call attention to a Salesforce.
Yeah, it should look like it's a natural part of the page rather than some kind of sore thumb sticking out.
Yes, not like a third-party extension. So that's where branding is really important to our experience. And then you can have all the service channels. So right now, for web snap-ins, we're only looking at live chat, but in the upcoming releases, we have plans to integrate cases, knowledge. SOS, though, is exclusively for mobile. This is just the visual representation before we go into a demo. It's, you configure, you brand, and then you get a code snippet that you embed into a web page, and that's called deployment. And once you're deployed, you're ready to go. Cool. With that, I would love to jump into a demo. And so imagine you're a user, you are shopping around for suits, and you come to this really cool looking site called Suit Supply. They're actually our customer right now. They've gone live with our product. So you're looking at their suits, you like them, but you're not sure because there's so many of them. So you kind of sort of like the blue suit, and look at it, you're not sure about the size, so you go back, and then this is the widget that's sitting on their page. And this is one thing I'd like to point out, this is a Lightning Out application. So we're leveraging Lightning Out all the way. When the widget's sitting on the page, it's just a static HTML button. But when you click on the widget, that's when we actually download the Lightning Out application, all of the resources.
That kind of launches the Lightning Out application
Yes.
once you click.
Yeah. We don't want to do it, we don't want to preload it because some users may never click on it. So you don't want to create that performance.
Unnecessary overhead.
Yes.
Right.
So the first thing we do show is a pre-chat form because some customers may want to take in information about their end user. I'm going to go ahead and enter my name, kgarg@test.com, need help with suits, and then hit start chatting. So we put you in a waiting state until you, so this is what an agent console looks like. Dave, you may be familiar with this, but just to orient you a little more, this is where like you have this, the idea is this is where the agent spends most of their time. And so we want to make it compact and optimize for their productivity. You can pick any widgets from the bar at the bottom, or you have related knowledge articles. This is the chat area. And I'm going to go ahead and accept the call. So if you see, we've passed in your email, first name, last name. And this is where I was saying we could plug in programmatically other hooks. We already have those hooks, and you can pass in more relevant information to the agent. So I'm going to go ahead and accept the call. The two things that get created, because this is a service scenario, is a contact and a case. And the agent can then go ahead and...
So the fact that the contact and case are being created, that's just a decision that you made when you created this particular snap.
Yes, and I can delve deeper into that when we look into setup. So there are a few options that they could choose besides the contact and case. I'm going to start chatting. Hi there. So this is a custom chat experience. Let's say I want to minimize the chat. I like the suit. I'm going to add it to my bag. And the chat experience that I want to explain is that we've continued the chat over to other pages. So we want to keep the chat going as the user navigates or browses through the site. We don't want this to be only on one page and then you have to come back to that.
Yeah, even some of the most experienced clickers will accidentally navigate away from a page, and you don't want to have to start over.
Yeah, and we can go further, but even if you were to go to google.com and come back, there is custom timeouts, but for at least for 2 minutes we keep the chat going.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
All right, so this was more or less of the chat experience. I'm going to go ahead and end the chat because I wanted to show more of the setup experience. So this is a Snap-in's deployment in the setup experience. So it sits under the service node. And I have a couple of things to point out here is because it's a chat experience, you need to have live agents set up or pre-configured in your org. And we do use communities or a site endpoint. So Lightning Out is just the application, but to talk to Salesforce, you do need unauthenticated, or you do need like a session to be created. And we leverage sites or communities to do that for us.
Yeah, so everything at Salesforce is behind some kind of identity.
Yes. Even unauthenticate,
Yeah, in lieu of logging in, we can use sites, which has a pre-configured guest user.
Yes, and that's what we're
that has
leveraging.
the identity. Right.
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new deployment. So let's say developer preview. And this is the site that you can use. I'm going to use a Snap-in site. Hit create. So the first things you see is really a live agent deployment, branding, and pre-chat. So I'm going to go ahead and create. I already have pre-configured live agent deployment and button. I'm going to go use that. Now, branding is, imagine I want red as my primary color, and like I want to try the full rainbow, so like yellow, and my nav bar can be, I don't know, green.
And I'd point out that while this looks like pretty simple branding, it's a simple user interface that we're providing.
Yes, yes.
Which has the benefit of being easy.
Easy.
Right?
That's exactly. We want it to be super easy for our users to get up and running. And I'm going to hit finish. And the pre-chat form is, so this is where we were talking about, I had configured my deployment to use a contact and case. But if you're an e-commerce website and you really care for lead generation, you can actually switch to the sales scenario, and I'll create a lead for you. For now, I'm going to keep it to the service scenario, a record type that drives the fields. And say I want to add mobile phones, and I want to make subject a required field. I can do that. Hit save. So that's about it. That's all you need to do before you get something. Hit get
so this
code.
is the meat of it.
Yes, so this is all of the code you need that we generate for you, that you just need to copy and paste into your web application. So I have this GitHub page that's really bare bones. It's just an HTML page which has a body and a div. I'm gonna go ahead and okay, this is where I need to sign in. ESW 234.
So once we've got that snippet, if we're developing a snap-in for a web page, that is a fully self-contained, as you mentioned, kind of lightning out component with all the configuration steps that you've clicked through represented within it.
So I'm going to go ahead, place the code here, and commit the code. Commit changes. So some of the things I'd like to point out are other hooks that we've given them for customization. So you saw that the pre-chat form had a background image. That's where you can add your image URLs. Waiting state, you can add some more. Company logos, help buttons. So we do have other areas where you can customize this further.
That's pretty cool. When I see these kind of features, one of the things that's part of my role as a developer evangelist at Salesforce is to figure out how to use our features in ways that they weren't intended to be used, just to help spur the imagination.
Yes.
And when I look at that, I immediately think, well, if we can do this for a sales process or a service process, couldn't we do snap-ins for a custom application process?
Yes.
Maybe not today.
Not today, but we're generalizing the platform that you could use it for any process that you wanted to.
That's great. I have, is there another slide? I don't
So
wanna...
this is just when the new deployment that we created, you can see it's branded with our new colors, and it's got the pre-chat form that we selected.
So what do we have on the roadmap here, the expanded product portfolio?
On the roadmap, we have, like I mentioned, snap-ins right now is web and mobile for iOS and Android is fully GA with cases, chat, knowledge, and SOS. For the web, we have live chat that's GA in Spring 17. But in summer, we're actually focusing a lot on generalizing so that we can add cases,
that's great.
Knowledge.
Kind of API first way to think about it.
And then
well, thank you so much, Kanan.
Thank you.
Another really great feature coming in the spring. We're just about out of time. There's a couple of questions on Twitter that we'll respond to probably on Twitter so that anybody watching can see this, but we won't do it right now. What I'd like to do, though, is go ahead and thank everyone for joining us for the developer preview of the Spring 17 release. Also wanted to mention, put it on your calendar, Trailhead DX is June 28th and 29th this year. We're going bigger. We've got 2 days. It's going to be in San Francisco. So make sure you mark that on your calendar. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for watching, and recordings will be coming out soon.